You did take out a temporary order of protection against your husband in 2021. Were you in fear of your husband?
Husband is alive. That's all I can say.
Okay.
Two separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13. When Garcia was originally arrested, he was wearing a sweatshirt with rolls of money pouring out, an MS-13 gang symbol that he was driving with two other known violent MS-13 gang members, two of the most violent members that we know of in the MS-13 gang of thugs. In 2022, Garcia was stopped by the Tennessee Highway Patrol and was found to be transporting 7 people from Texas to Maryland, and he had no driver's license. He was driving violently. In 2020 and 2021, Garcia's wife filed for a protective order from him and said he was violent and abusive and really scary, including allegations that he punched and scratched her on the eye, left her bleeding after throwing her laptop on the floor at her, ripped her shirt, and ripped off her shorts. He then grabbed her arm, leaving very severe marks. Garcia's wife also wrote in court, "At this point, I am afraid to be close to him. I just don't want to be close. I have multiple photos and videos how violent he can be and all of the bruises that he's left on me." She just couldn't get anywhere near him. This is the man that the Democrats are wanting us to fly back from El Salvador to be a happily ensconced member of the USA family.
The leftist narrative continues to fall apart. For weeks now, the Democrats have been clamoring that this Abrego Garcia guy, he's not really MS-13, right? There's been no police reports. There have been no arrests. And of course, there was no due process given to this man whatsoever. However, all of that is a complete line of garbage because over the last 48 hours, the information has been coming out that yes, in fact, there are reports. He is MS-13. And yes, he has gone through the whole due process of being deported as a terrorist illegal immigrant in this country, all right? And Donald Trump actually came out on TV during one of his press conferences and gave all of that evidence. However, MSNBC decided they didn't want the American people to hear about it.
Garcia was issued a deportation order. Two separate judges affirmed Garcia was a member of MS-13, which is a gang that may be even worse.
We've been watching President Donald Trump there swearing in the new administrator of the CMS, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid, Dr. Mehmet Oz, during this conversation.
So now that the truth is finally coming out, what does the leftist mainstream media want to do? They want to shut it down. They don't want it to be spread around because how can they continue with their narrative, right? They always back the wrong horse, and I find it hilarious. However, the good people over at CNN are saying, hey, MSNBC, hold my beer. We'll show you how to really mess things up as Kaitlan Collins gets totally fact-checked into oblivion by Tom Homan.
I stand by the fact that I think things were done right with this case. He's an MS-13 gang member. He has a final order of removal. He is designated terrorist, and he's back in El Salvador, his homeland. And anything beyond that, we'll let the courts settle on it.
You say everything was done right here. And I heard Stephen Miller in the Oval Office on Monday also arguing that he was lawfully deported. But this administration has admitted in court that he was mistakenly deported, that he should not have been deported.
Look, they say that there's administrative error, but if you look at the case, if I look at the case as a non-attorney, just an enforcement officer, I think things were done right. Again, they're talking about, well, it might have been a paper error about the withholding, but if we look at the case and he's designated terrorist, I think that withholding has been set aside. That is my opinion. But again, we'll let DOJ fight it out.
Well, I mean, the Solicitor General, it was the third in the chain of command at the DOJ, has said that this was an error.
Then I'll let them deal with it. I'm giving you my opinion. I said I'm not going to get in the middle of what DOJ is arguing in court. I'm telling you, from my stance, what we've done, I believe, is correct, and that's why DOJ is standing by the fact that what we did was right.
You know, I've seen some people look at this and say they're worried that the stance of this administration when it comes to this is that if someone is deported by accident, that they have no responsibility for them once they are in the custody of a foreign government. What would you say to that?
Well, they're in the custody of El Salvador. He's an El Salvadoran national. He was born in El Salvador. El Salvador has him in custody, and El Salvador decide what will happen to him. I mean, again, the El Salvadoran president made it clear he's not going to release him. So again, I'm going to go back. The DOJ, they can fight this out in the courts. As I'm not a part of that. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a prosecutor. So we'll let the courts, decide what the next steps will be.
Even though it was a U.S. immigration judge who said the one place he can't go is El Salvador. I mean, he could have been deported literally anywhere else.
Again, we can keep going back and back, but again, that was years ago. Country conditions were different. That gang no longer exists in El Salvador. He had been designated a terrorist since that time. 2 different federal judges said he's an MS-13 member. A police department said he's an MS-13 member. ICE status shows he's an MS-13 member. El Salvador says he's an MS-13 member. As you know, MS-13 has been designated terrorist. The case has the facts of the case have changed since that first decision. So again, I'll leave it up to the DOJ to argue that case in court, but that is where I stand, and that's my belief.
So the one arrow that the Democrats have left in their quiver is the simple fact that, yes, on this deportation order, this man was not supposed to have been sent back to El Salvador, and that is because his life was supposedly in danger. However, as Tom Homan masterfully points out, situations change, right? This ruling was from about 7 years ago, and guess what happened? The gang that was threatening his life no longer exists. Okay, so as an El Salvadorian prison, it's probably okay to send him back there. However, we should probably fight this out in the courts with the Department of Justice. However, what still remains to be true is that even if we did bring him back, we could still deport him to any other country. However, at this point in time, the Supreme Court has said that we would have to facilitate his return. However, that's only now at this point if El Salvador wants to send him back, which Nayib Bukele has said he does not. All right, they're going to keep him because he's actually a criminal in his own country. All right. And I love how Tom Homan also walks Kaitlan Collins through the whole process that, yes, this man was designated as MS-13 by the police, by the Department of Homeland Security, right? He's a Tamermanist, okay? And the judges actually had him go through his due process and guess what? Ordered his deportation. It doesn't get any more cut and dry than all that. But of course, facts have never been much use to the left. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and say hi to your mom for me.